perhaps we'll go through the first one, please.
Yes, sir. So earlier today, before the press came in, you signed a commission appointing Chris Wright to be your next Secretary of Energy. We have another commission prepared for your signature, sir. This is Doug Collins to be Secretary of the VA, Doug Collins of Georgia.
Two very good men. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next up, in light of numerous actions taken by a number of bodies of the United Nations which exhibit a deep anti-American bias, we have an executive order prepared for your attention that would withdraw the United States from the UN Human Rights Council, would withdraw the United States from the UNRWA, which is a refugee organization, and would also review American involvement in UNESCO, which has also exhibited anti-American bias. More generally, the executive order calls for a review of American involvement and funding in the UN in light of the wild disparities in levels of funding among different countries that, as you've expressed previously, is deeply unfair to the United States.
So I've always felt that the UN has tremendous potential. It's not living up to that potential right now. It really isn't, hasn't for a long time. It has, there are great hopes for it, but it's not being well run, to be honest, and they're not doing the job. A lot of these conflicts that we're working on should be settled, or at least we should have some help in settling them. We never seem to get help. That should be the primary purpose of the UN, the United Nations, and again, it's got great potential, and based on the potential, we'll continue to go along with it, but they got to get their act together.
Next, sir, this is a national security presidential memorandum that seeks to impose maximum pressure on the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Many of these provisions are similar to actions that your administration took during your first administration. The basic idea here is to have every department and agency, or many departments and agencies in your government attempt to sanction and control Iranian activities, particularly relating to the Iranian nuclear program and the Iranian export of terrorism through support of various proxy groups abroad. And the intent here is to give you all of the possible tools to, I'd say, engage with the Iranian government to ensure that going forward they're less of a malign actor on the world stage.
So this is one that I'm torn about. Everybody wants me to sign it. I'll do that. It's very tough on Iran. It's what we had before. We would have never had the problem. You would have never had October 7th. We would have never had the problem had the election gone a different way, which it should have. But this one, I think, more than made up for it. I think we're doing things, and it shows that more than made up for it, much more historic. The Iran situation, hopefully, I'm going to sign it, but hopefully we're not going to have to use it very much. We will see whether or not we can arrange or work out a deal with Iran, and everybody can live together, and maybe that's possible, and maybe it's not possible. So I'm signing this, and I'm unhappy to do it, but I really have not so much choice, because we have to be strong and firm, and I hope that it's not going to have to be used in any great measure at all. It'd be great if we could have a Middle East and maybe a world at total peace. Right now you don't have that. When I left, you had peace all over the world, and now you have the world is blowing up. As you know, Bibi is coming in to see me later. Others are coming in to see me. We'll see what we can do. But I'm signing this, and hopefully it will be a document which won't be very important, will hardly have to be used.
So what kind of deal would you be prepared to
Well,
make?
we're going to see. I mean, we're going to see. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. With me, it's very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. We don't want to be tough on Iran. We don't want to be tough on anybody, but they just can't have a nuclear weapon.
Mr. President, are you going to engage in conversations with your counterpart in Iran?
I would.
Do you want to block the sale of Iranian oil to other nations?
Well, we have the right to do that, and that's what I did before, and they had no money. They wouldn't have had the money for Hamas or Hezbollah and anybody else. It could have been solved, this thing. It just, if things went the way they should have, this would have been over long ago. But it's not over.
How
And,
close do you think Iran is to developing nuclear weapons?
I think they're close. I think they're close. They're too close. But again, you could go back 4 years, I would have said they would have had it during this intervening period. But they're pretty close, Peter.
And why say that you're unhappy to sign it if it's Iran and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani?
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do. Not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left. And they shouldn't be able to do it. And Biden should have said that, but he never did. I don't know why. Lack of intelligence, perhaps. But he never said it. If that happens to a leader, or close to a leader, frankly, if you had other people involved also, you would call for total obliteration of a state that did it. That would include Iran. So I'm signing this, and it's a very powerful document, but hopefully we're not going to have to use it.
Mr. President, if the Prime Minister today were to ask your help in striking at Iran's nuclear facilities to prevent the kind of progress towards a nuclear weapon, would you give him the green light? Would it, either to do it himself or for the U.S. to participate with him?
I don't know that that's what he's going to be asking for. I have no idea that it is. You're telling me. We're going to have a pretty long meeting. We're going to be discussing a lot of things, not only that, but a lot of things. And I'll let you know if the time comes to let you know. But right now, that's not something that I can discuss.
Mr. President, when you said if they do it, they get obliterated. Just to be clear, you're talking about if Iran made an attempt on your life.
Yeah, that would be called total obliteration. And I can't imagine they do that. It should have been stated by Biden, but he didn't state it because he had no clue, as you know, as everybody knows. Thank you very much. This is a nice crowd, isn't it, huh? You've been waiting a long time for this. Yeah. So have I. Actually, it was so ridiculous. But here we are. And this doesn't have to be long. It's just all about common sense. Doesn't have to be long. In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time. Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women. And who could forget last year's Paris Olympics, where a male boxer stole the women's gold medal after brutalizing his female opponent so viciously that she had to forfeit just after 46 seconds, and she was a championship fighter. And actually, they had two women or two people that transitioned, and both of them won gold medals, and they won them very convincingly. But all of that ends today because with this executive order, the war on women's sports is over. Thank you, everybody. Should have been done long ago, actually. Thank you. Thank you very much. With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding. So this will effectively end the attack on female athletes at public K-12 schools and virtually all U.S. colleges and universities. I don't think we've missed anything, but if we do, we'll make it up very quickly with an order, and I don't think we will at all. And I'm going to sign the executive order right now, and everything I said will go into effect immediately, okay? Thank you.
Sit down, please. Down in front. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you.
You know, if you'd like to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay. Come on. Come on. Secret Service is worried about them? If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay, do you want to do this? Watch what I do, and then I'm going to give you some pens, okay? Are you ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that. I want to make this a really good signature, because this is, this is a big one, right? Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
Pretty good, huh? Okay? Good. Now you're going to go out and win those events, right? Nice to see you all. Great going, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you, kids.
We're coming in. Don't lock the door. We're coming in. Who are you?
You're not coming in.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you? Who are you, sir?
Do you have business here?
Yes.
Democratic members of Congress barred from entering the Department of Education Friday morning as President Trump continues to threaten to diminish and eventually eliminate the department. On Thursday, 96 members of Congress sent a letter to the acting Secretary of Education requesting a meeting today to discuss Trump's effort to shut down the department. But when they showed up, they were met with locked doors. Jackie Coppell has the latest from outside of the Education Department.
A tense standoff just a short time ago between members of Congress and a security guard in front of the Department of Education. The members of Congress were locked out. They were here, they said, to provide oversight. Now, these are Democratic members, oversight over perceived threats to the Department of Education. They wanted to talk to the acting secretary. News Nation brings you right there.
We pay for your job. We pay you.
We're members of
We pay you. So what are you
Not a
going to do?
security
You're going to beat
person.
us up if we go in?
I mean, you're gonna,
We want you to move out of here. Get out of the way.
We all have oversight responsibilities. By what authority can you deny members of Congress their oversight role?
you don't have a business reason to be here.
You do not have authority, sir.
To federal buildings.
We're allowed in there.
So a private security contractor is blocking members of Congress.
Members of Congress.
This is a public institution.
Elon Musk hire you?
So are you not aware of members of Congress who have responsibilities on? We're trying to save your job.
This is the beginning of full transparency of this administration. That's right. The administration that talked about they're going to open the doors to all of these things and show the American public what is going on. They won't even open the door to this building to members of Congress. We are not posing any threat here.
This man here, who is a federal employee, he told us.
He's not.
Are you a federal employee? Huh?
Yes.
I know he was told to come out here and do this.
Yes, he was.
He was told to come out here and block members of Congress from entering an all-access entrance to the Department of Education as we fight in defense of public education and students.
As President Donald Trump continues to make changes to departments and agencies, it is likely that we're going to see more events like these. This was the 5th such protest just this week. This is Jackie Coppell, News Nation.
This is Ota from Yomiuri Shimbun newspaper. I have a question for Prime Minister Ishiba. So this is your very first summit meeting. What was your impression of President Trump? Were you able to build a good relationship of trust and confidence? In Northeast Asia, there are many challenges, China, North Korea, and so forth. And with President Trump, what did you appeal to him, and what kind of understanding were you able to obtain? On the economic field, there is the acquisition of U.S. Steel, the buy Nippon Steel, and there are expansion of import of LNG. What were the communication discussion did you have with President Trump for the $1 trillion of investment from Japan to investment? What was his reaction? What about your communication on tariff front? This is the first time that I met with President Trump in person. So this was the first time meeting face to face. But for many, many years, I have watched him on television. So it was quite I was so excited to see such a celebrity on television, to see in person. On television, he is frightening. And he has a very strong personality. But when I met with him, actually, he was very sincere and very powerful and with strong will for the United States as for the whole world. I was able to feel that. This is not the sort of polishing or trying to suck up to him. For the world peace and for the regional stability that both of our countries need to play our role and make our endeavors and responsibility. As for the increase of our defense expenditures, it is not that we are told by the United States to do so. Japan, on our own decision, and on our own responsibility, we need to increase our defense expenditures. But of course, we need to communicate and consult with the United States. But the responsibility is with Japan, and the decision is with Japan. Now, on the tariffs, that if it is mutually beneficial, tariffs need to be set. And as for Japan, as Mr. President has introduced to us, an unprecedented investment will be made from Japan to the United States, and so many jobs will be created. So $1 trillion is the target. And this will be to the benefit of the United States, but also to the benefit of Japan as well. Investment is mutually beneficial. So be it with U.S. Steel, as Mr. President says, it is not acquisition, it is investment. So the Japanese technology will be provided, and the better quality products will be manufactured in the United States, and the U.S. Steel will make products which will contribute not only to the United States and Japan, but also to the whole world. It is not one-sided. It will be reciprocal. It will be mutually beneficial. And I believe we were able to share on this, and that is the biggest result that I have seen today.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. We have a lot of big signings, good signings, one in particular, which we'll save for the end. And I'll ask Will to go over these individually, and we can see how we do.
Yes, sir. First, for your review, we have 56 sub-cabinet level appointments. This includes probably most notably 7 ambassador appointments. Those will be the first ambassadors, I believe, that you've transmitted to the Senate.
Okay. And they're very good. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Second, we have acting designations. We're actually designating Doug Collins to be the acting leader of both the Office of Special Counsel and the Office of Government Ethics.
You know Doug, everybody, I think?
Johnson administration to train senior-level government bureaucrats. As you've identified repeatedly in the last few years, the senior levels of our federal government are not adequately serving as stewards of taxpayer dollars, so we're recommending zeroing out that program effectively.
We're actually getting rid of a few programs that are just a waste, just really a waste.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have an executive order relating to the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. As you've repeatedly identified, the way that this act has been enforced over the years has been devastating to American business opportunities and business competitiveness abroad. We are essentially ordering the Department of Justice to use its prosecutorial discretion in a way to ameliorate the negative effects of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, to allow Americans to do business abroad, and to allow our foreign partners to do business with Americans without fearing unjust prosecution.
And for those of you that know this, it turned out to be, it sounds good on paper, but in practicality it's a disaster. It means that if an American goes over to a foreign country and starts doing business over there legally, legitimately, or otherwise, it's almost a guaranteed investigation, indictment, and nobody wants to do business with the Americans because of it. Nobody wants to do business. They say, look, we can deal with China, they can do whatever they want. We can deal with Russia, we can deal with anybody, and we have a normal life. You deal with America, the FBI gets over there. They don't investigate death and murders on the street in New York and Los Angeles. They go over and investigate a business guy trying to do business. So it made it very, very hard from a practical standpoint to make deals. They want to deal with the Americans, but they don't want to be under investigation every time they speak to an American, every time an American makes a phone call to somebody in a different country. It's a disaster for this country. And I guess it was a Jimmy Carter concept, and it sounds so good, but it's so bad. It hurts the country, and many, many deals are unable to be made because of it. Nobody wants to do business because they don't want to feel like every time they pick up a phone, they're going to jail. So we'll sign this, and it takes courage to sign it because you only get bad publicity when you sign it. It sounds so nice, the title is so lovely, but it's an absolutely horror show for America. So we're signing it because that's what we have to do to make it good.
Next, this is an executive order relating to the use of paper straws. As you've consistently identified, nobody really likes paper straws.
#1 trending. Can you believe it? A paper straw was #1 trending for 3 days or something.
The environmental impact of plastic straws versus paper straws is entirely unclear. This has cost both the government and private industry an absolute ton of money and left consumers all over the country wildly dissatisfied with their straws. So we're asking aspects of the federal government, federal departments and agencies to look at their existing procurement processes, and we're asking your Domestic Policy Council to look holistically at this issue to address it, and it really is something that affects ordinary Americans in their everyday lives.
We're going back to plastic straws. These things don't work. I've had them many times, and on occasion they break, they explode. If something's hot, they don't last very long, like a matter of minutes, sometimes a matter of seconds. It's a ridiculous situation. So we're going back to plastic straws. I think it's okay.
Next, we have a full and unconditional pardon for former Governor Rod Blagojevich of the state of Illinois.
Good. It's my honor to do it. I've watched him. He was set up by a lot of bad people, some of the same people that I had to deal with. He wasn't quite as successful, but he had somebody that saw what was going on. I didn't know him other than I believe he was on The Apprentice for a little while. He was just a very nice person. He had a fantastic wife. She fought like hell to get him out. He was given a sentence of like 18 years. And it was a sort of a terrible injustice. They just were after him. They go after a lot of people. These are bad people on the other side. So I think he's just a very fine person. And this shouldn't have happened, and it shouldn't have happened to him. And let him have a normal life and let him go out and do what he has to do. So I'm signing this as a full pardon. Rod Blagojevich.
Next, in 2018, you imposed ad valorem duties, tariffs on imports of steel at a 25% rate. Since that time, a large number of exclusions and exceptions to that tariff rule have been implemented. Because of the damage to the United States steel industry that those exceptions and exclusions have imposed, we're now, this order would reimpose that 25% ad valorem tariff rate on imports of steel, and it's presented for your signature now.
Okay. Do you understand what that means? It's a big deal. It's a big deal. This is the beginning of making America rich again. Mr. Secretary, do you have anything to say? As you know, Howard is Secretary of Commerce, doing a fantastic job. And what do you have to say about it?
So when you imposed the tariffs the first time,
Right.
you added 120,000 jobs. And since that time, it's been picked away and nicked away and excluded away, and we've lost 107,000 jobs. And remember, these aren't just general jobs. These are steel workers in America, and now you're going to bring them back. You're going to bring those 120,000 jobs back to America. You are the president who's standing up for the American steel worker, and I am just tremendously impressed and delighted to stand next to you.
The first CBS News poll of President Trump's second term shows him with a significantly higher approval rating than he enjoyed his first time in office. So 53% of Americans say they approve of the job the president has done so far. 47% disapprove. That's more than a dozen points higher than his 40% approval rating from February 2017. CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, joins me now in the flesh. What a treat to have you here.
How are you?
So, look, I mean, Anthony, at the top levels, people seem to like what he's doing. So what's contributing to these numbers?
The first one is this big number, 70%, who feel that he is doing what he promised in the campaign. There's political value in that, right? It's a lot of his supporters who feel like this is what they voted for and this is what they're getting. There's people in here who approve and disapprove of him, but still that kind of dynamic, especially early in an administration where people are evaluating based on what they saw in the campaign. There's this other point, too, that I want to emphasize. And speaking of the campaign, Kelly, we had a lot of descriptors of him during the summer, during the fall. We redid them here, and you see that majorities describe him as tough, energetic, focused. All of that is contributing to how they're evaluating these early weeks as well.
Yeah, 69% tough. Maybe that ties into what I'm going to ask you about next. So look, improving the economy, fighting inflation, I mean, that was a key part of Trump's campaign. But your polling shows more Americans think he isn't focused enough on lowering prices. One of the main economic promises, of course, tariffs.
Right.
And there have been, going back to that tough point, some negotiations maybe with Canada and Mexico. What are people feeling about these tariffs?
Yeah, I see where you're headed, so I pulled up this slide.
I love it.
Right?
You're reading my mind.
So look, with regard to tariffs, you do see favorability towards China, tariffs on China, but all the other nations you mentioned, or countries, Europe included, Canada, Mexico, you get majority opposed. And it's always about the why here, right? So when you ask people what do tariffs do, well, there's a number of things, but the biggest thing that you see is, in general, they think they make prices higher. So coming back to the point you made about focus on lowering prices, yes, inflation was a big reason, maybe the reason, that Donald Trump won. So you come back, and of all the things that they see the administration focusing on, not focusing on, and there's a lot, one that stood out was this 2/3 who said, no, they don't think the administration is focusing enough yet on lowering prices. So that becomes an important dynamic to watch, certainly in the context of the argument around tariffs.
It is interesting, though, right? Because there was that promise, I'm going to lower prices on day one, which, I mean, look, I put my economics hat on. You can't do that, right? You can't just snap your fingers. And so at the same time, there's also this perception, though, that maybe he would be able to do that.
And people know that. So even in this poll, when we ask, well, how long, if you think he's going to lower prices, do you think it will take? That most of his supporters say, well, it'll take 6 months. It'll take a year. So they give him some time. And that's why I say this is something to watch. They don't expect it to happen instantaneously. They know a president doesn't have a magic wand to do that. But it does become an important evaluation then as we go forward, how that plays out.
Right, and what policies he's choosing, to go for.
I got to ask you, though, about Elon Musk, okay? Because Democrats have attacked his involvement in the federal government as having a potential conflict of interest. What's your polling saying about that when it comes to American sentiment?
So we took a look at the general amount of influence that folks thought that Elon Musk and Doge ought to have. And what you get is these really partisan breaks. The first one, of course, you talked about Democrats, is this big majority who think it should have not much or none. But then within Republicans, you get a big majority who say it should have at least some. One reason for this is that some of these broader ideas, the idea of cutting government spending, the idea of cutting foreign aid, all of those things are popular with especially Republicans and have been for many, many years in the polling. But you also see that the number who say he should have a lot of influence, that's a lot more MAGA Republicans. You see the breakdown within the Republicans here. And that, I think, speaks to the fact that we're going to have to watch a lot of this going forward, especially as it applies to the base.
Pam Bondi was just confirmed by a vote of 54 to 46. Joining me now, Chris Bedford, author of Beltway Brief. Chris, the lone Democrat to vote for Bondi was Senator Fetterman of Pennsylvania. It's frankly despicable that more Democrats didn't vote for her. She's eminently qualified for this job, which once again shows you that this is about politics with the minority party right now.
Hello, everybody. This is a great honor and a real privilege. I'm thrilled to be here today with our nation's next incredible, and she will be incredible, Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi. And I want to congratulate Pam. She's worked hard, so hard, and unbelievably fair and unbelievably good at law enforcement. I just want to congratulate you. Very special person. Pam was a career prosecutor for nearly 20 years and was one of the toughest and smartest and best and most successful attorney generals in the history of Florida. And I think, I put it out this morning, I think she's going to end up going down as the most successful, or certainly one of the most successful attorney generals that this country has ever had. I really believe that. I know her well. A lot of people in Florida, if you're in Florida, you know her well. And it was all good. There was never a problem, no problem. As a prosecutor, she locked up drug dealers and gang members and human traffickers and was waging war all the time on the pill mills, they called them, that fueled the deadly opioid crisis. And she did better than anybody else. There was nobody like her in the country. She also won over $50 billion in lawsuits for the victims of financial fraud and devastating Deepwater Horizon oil spill, which was brutal. And she was the leader of that whole deal, getting that people taken care of. As Attorney General of the United States, Pam has a historic and urgently needed task ahead of her. She's going to restore fair, equal, and impartial justice and restore the constitutional rule of law in America. She'll lead the Department of Justice in crushing violent crime, demolishing the gangs, which are all over the place. If you look at New York, if you look at Chicago, if you look at Los Angeles, which is half burned down, unfortunately, because they didn't have the water and they didn't have what they were supposed to have. Destroying the terrorist cartels is going to be a very big priority for Pam, and that leads to crime and it leads to a lot of drugs. So she's going to take care of it, and she'll stop the invasion of our country and get fentanyl off our streets. And we're going to be working with her very closely. Christine Holm and Tom Homan and all of the people are going to be working very closely with Pam. She's going to end the weaponization of federal law enforcement and restore honesty and integrity at the DOJ and the FBI. And she's going to be working with Cash, and she's going to be working with a lot of other people that you've been reading about, writing about over the last few weeks. The role of Attorney General comes with immense responsibility, but I have absolute confidence that Pam will fulfill her duties with honor and courage and strength and fairness. She's going to be fair. She's going to be very fair. And now I'd like to invite Justice Thomas to administer the oath of office. And thank you all for being here. It's a very important day, I believe, in our country's history. Thank you very much.
I do solemnly swear
I, Pamela Bondi, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
The yeas are 77, the nays are 23, and the nomination is confirmed. The previous order, the motion to reconsider is considered made and laid upon the table, and the president will immediately notify.
The yeas are
will
53,
be immediately
the nays are
notified of the
47.
Senate's action.
The motion
Under
is
the
agreed
previous
to.
order, the Senate stands in recess
The
until
clerk will report
2:15
the
p.m.
nomination.
Executive Office of the President, Russell Vogt of Virginia to be Director of the Office of Management and Budget.
I, Scott Turner, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter.
the duties on the office in which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
The full Senate is now set to vote on two of President Trump's more controversial nominees. The Senate Intelligence Committee today advanced Tulsi Gabbard to a full vote to become National Intelligence Director. Earlier today, the Senate Finance Committee moved forward with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s nomination to be Health and Human Services Secretary. Gabbard and Kennedy could face a full confirmation vote as soon as this week. CBS News congressional reporter Torian Small joins us now from Capitol Hill. Torian, how did Gabbard convince the intelligence community to support her nomination?
Well, we're learning that there was an intense pressure campaign from the Trump administration to these wayward Republican senators. Todd Young of Indiana was just reportedly on the fence with Gabbard, for example. We then saw Elon Musk take to his social media platform and call him a deep state puppet. That was before he had a conversation with the Indiana senator, which he then pulled back to those words and put out a statement saying that he's encouraged by the conversation that he had and ultimately a vote that was favorable to the president. Look, these are two nominees who has quite a bit of controversy surrounding them when it comes to Gabbard, her recent and previous mistrust of the intel community and spreading of information that many of these senators felt were just unbecoming of a person fit to lead the intel community, gave them pause. In her confirmation hearing, there was bipartisan trepidation to her response on whether or not she believed Edward Snowden was a traitor. In fact, Senator Lankford pressed her several times, at least 3 times, to answer whether or not she believed that he was a traitor, and she just refused to answer that. She did, though, reassure members of that panel, and she ultimately gave her word to senators at large that as the lead of the Department of National Intelligence, she's working to ensure transparency and unbiased information received into the department, but also spread to the ranks here in Congress.
The yeas are 52, the nays are 46. The motion is agreed to.
It is D-Day for federal worker buyouts. Just under 12 hours remaining for government employees to accept their deals. And tens of thousands of workers are expected to take the money and run. Also, the Doge audits continue. The agency is now targeting billions of dollars in fraudulent Medicare payments. But while Elon Musk looks to streamline the bloated federal government, Democrats are focused on firing Elon Musk. Welcome to the Big Money Show, everyone. I'm Jackie DeAngelis. I am joined by my co-hosts, Taylor Riggs, Dagan McDowell, and Brian Brenberg, along with our special guest for the hour, Wall Street Journal editorial page assistant editor and Fox News contributor, James Freeman. Welcome. Good to see everyone. All right, we begin today on Capitol Hill with our own Hillary Vaughn. She's got the latest on Doge's next move. Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Jackie. Well, the clock is ticking. So far, about 40,000 federal workers have taken the buyout option. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. But some Democrats on Capitol Hill are trying to scare workers out of taking it.
I've been saying to all the federal employees, beware of this offer. I don't believe it's been funded. I don't believe Donald Trump has any history of ever paying his bills. And I fear that federal employees may be marked for later riffing, potentially without any compensation.
Where do you come up with this shit?
The Office of Personnel Management is making it crystal clear, saying, quote, Fed workers, the Office of Personnel Management is approving VERA, that's Voluntary Early Retirement Authority, requests coming from all agencies. Do not fall for misinformation. While workers weigh whether or not they are in or out, Doge is focusing on its next target, Medicare and Medicaid, where they say most of the fraud is. HHS estimates there is about $100 billion in improper payments made in these programs in 2023 alone. And for Social Security, Doge has already started weeding out waste, saying they canceled a contract to offer a third option for gender. Instead of male or female, you could opt for gender X. That change was costing taxpayers $1 million. All these changes are making Democrats fired up. They say it's time for Elon Musk to go.
Nobody elected Elon Musk to be president, but he has his grimy hands all over our administration.
Well, we are not going to help Republicans keep Elon Musk stealing our taxpayer dollars.
Elon Musk, we've got a message for you. You will be fired.
But it's not clear what firing Elon Musk would do if someone else was just appointed to his same position doing exactly what he is doing at Doge.
The CIA is now offering buyouts to its entire workforce, and Elon Musk facing criticism over his government revamp efforts. ABC's Lionel Moise has the latest.
This morning, the CIA is now offering buyouts to its entire staff, the latest move in President Trump's push to downsize the government. It follows a similar offer to civilian federal workers last month. About 20,000 of those workers have now accepted the buyout ahead of tomorrow's deadline, amid reports of mass layoffs to come. ABC News has learned Elon Musk, leading the Department of Government Efficiency, has now moved beds into the executive office building next to the White House, allowing Musk and his staff to sleep there when working late. His staff reportedly includes people as young as 19 years old. President Trump insists they're qualified.
They're very smart people.
Trump also praising Musk for dismantling USAID, an agency that funds international relief efforts.
It's a disaster.
USAID staff getting this email that all direct hires will be put on administrative leave with pay, except for certain staffers serving mission-critical functions. Democrats held a rally outside the Treasury Department to protest Musk's influence.
We have got to tell Elon Musk, nobody elected your Nobody told you you could get all of our private information.
don't pledge allegiance to Elon Musk. No. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid?
Musk has also faced scrutiny after getting a hold of the Treasury Department's payment system, which disperses 90% of all federal payments, including Social Security and Medicare. The Treasury Department insisting Musk's team has been granted read-only access, suggesting no changes will be made without higher authority.
The Doge cuts have begun, and while Elon Musk says that he expects to save trillions of dollars by the end of the fiscal year, our next guest says that while he supports Doge, current trends suggest it would take him until about 2065 to save that much. A former White House chief of staff in the first Trump administration, Mick Mulvaney, is here. He also served as the director of the OMB and CFPB. He's also co-chair of Actum Strategic Advisors. Good morning to you. Lots of debate about what's possible, what's not. There's some excitement about it. There's also a whole bunch of folks out there that are anxious about it. Let's just talk about, Mick, to begin with, what you think actually is realistic. And also, we should just define what Elon has said. Obviously, he's talked about $2 trillion, talked about $1 trillion. At one point, he's talked about less than that. So I don't want to put words in his mouth either at this point. But what do you think is possible?
Yeah, good morning, Andrew. In terms of the dollar amounts, the reason I said it would take 40 years is it took him 2 weeks to save the first billion. A trillion is 1,000 billion, so it's 2,000 weeks, which is about 40 years. So if they're going to really save a lot of money, they're going to have to move a lot faster. I don't think that Doge is going to actually be able to save money directly. It's set up within the old U.S. digital services within OMB, and they don't have the authority to actually spend less. What they've got the ability to do is what you've seen here in the first 2.5 weeks, which is shine the light on where the waste, fraud, and abuse is. Then I think it's going to be up to other people to step in and fix it. So I think it does serve a role, but it won't be direct.
As a business guy in Silicon Valley, you must not hate everything, but I'm sure your eyebrows are raised at a few things.
Well, Joe, look, when the president and Elon Musk said that they wanted to bring transparency to government, expose waste and fraud, I was one of the Democrats who said, okay, let's work to see where that can happen. Let's look at the 5 primes in the Defense Department. Let's look at programs to make sure they're effective. The problem I have, and the reason that, Musk actually attacked me yesterday on Twitter, the problem I have is come to Congress, show where the fraud is, show where the wasteful spending is, and force an up or down vote. Don't make that decision unilaterally. That just, in my view, violates the Constitution. So if he wants to show that there's a lot of wasteful spending, come to Congress, force us to vote on it.
Rody, do you think any of opening up the hood, I think this is what you're saying, opening up the hood and looking at where we're spending is something that it'd be hard for anyone to say that that's not a good idea. But how he does it, what's constitutional, what the president can allow him to do, where's the guidebook? Do you think Congress should have the oversight there?
Look, Article 1 of the Constitution says Congress should spend. Now, the president and Musk and others
do you guys ever listen to that?
Well, their view is, we can only set what the maximum is. If we mandate some spending, they don't have to follow the maximum. Joe, imagine that someone from the left becomes president. Congress says we need $800 billion mandated for the defense budget. And you have someone from the left as president saying, no, we only are going to spend $300 billion. I mean, that's ridiculous. Of course, you have to spend what Congress appropriates. And that's the argument. I think they are likely to find awful examples of wasteful spending. I don't contest that. I'm sure they can legitimately offer transparency and sunlight to the American people. Just come to Congress, show us what you're finding, and then force up or down votes. And if Ro Khanna still votes for those wasteful spending, I'll have to answer back home. Instead, the approach they're taking, which is just to stop the payments or make these decisions unilaterally, I don't think it's effective. Actually, have a partner with Congress to tell the American people what's wrong. And if you have a good case, the American people will demand those cuts.
Breaking news, another CNN exclusive. New emails, exchanges, we should say, reviewed by CNN show Elon Musk's requested expansive access to the critical Treasury payment system. CNN's Caitlin Polantz and Phil Madley join me now with this exclusive reporting. This is really important because the administration has been saying that the access was just supposed to be for read-only, right? What have you learned?
Yeah, so right after Donald Trump comes into office, he shuts down the USAID payments that are outgoing. And the way to do that is through the agency itself. But there is this system at the Treasury Department that distributes essentially all the checks that go out for the federal government, $5 trillion a year. And what we learned through our understanding of these emails that were being exchanged from Trump, people coming in interested in advancing his politics, and then they're speaking to the career, longtime civil servants at Treasury. They're saying, shut off USAID payments here in this department as almost a backstop to making sure the State Department could then have time to look at the individual payments and turn them off on their end. The tension here is that that's just not how it works. The Treasury doesn't make these sorts of choices. And this is the first known indication that we have that the Department of Government Efficiency, people working with Elon Musk, the Chief of Staff for the incoming Cabinet Secretary for the Treasury Department, that they were all interested in using the resources at Treasury to carry out Donald Trump's political agenda and turn off those payments.
Liar, lie, your pants on fire.
There is widespread concern about the Doge team's access to sensitive payment systems. Are you worried at all that that access and that tinkering of the payment systems could affect the Treasury's market or cause any disruption?
Good. Well, Saleha, thank you for asking me about that because there's a lot of misinformation out there. First of all, when you say the Doge team, these are Treasury employees. It is 2 Treasury employees, one of whom I personally interviewed in his final round. There is no tinkering with the system. They are on read-only. They are looking. They can make no changes. It is an operational program to suggest improvement. So we make 1.3 billion payments a year. And this is 2 employees who are working with a group of long-standing employees.
The letter that the Treasury Department sent earlier this week talked about how the team currently does not have access to change the system. Have they at any point this year had the ability to make changes?
Absolutely not. This is no different than you would have at a private company. And by the way, the ability to change the system sits over at the Federal Reserve. So it doesn't even lie in this building. So they could make suggestions on how to change the system, but we don't even run the system.
And if they ask for, if they request the ability to change the system, would you grant that?
No, again, they have no ability to change the system. I have no ability to grant that change. That they can make suggestions, then it would go to the Federal Reserve, and just like any large ERP system, there would be tests, there would be this, there would be that, and then the Fed will determine whether these changes are robust or not.
USAID has gotten a lot of attention the last couple of days with some of these bizarre things that we've been, taxpayers have been funding. Now it looks like there are a couple media outlets that have been dragged into this conversation as far as USAID funding as well. Does the president have any comment on that?
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayer's dime will no longer be happening. The Doge team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort.
At the end of the day, are we going to get the cuts in spending that Doge has promised? It may be a way off, but at the end of that day, are we going to get it?
You know, the president is 100% serious about deficit reduction. It's one reason why Elon is on the team. And we've been overwhelmed with the positive response of Elon's efforts. Elon is the hardest working guy I've ever seen. His office is actually over there right next to mine or close to mine. And it's impossible to be there however late you are without Elon working there when he's in town. And I got to say, he's finding things that need to be fixed. And he's fixing them at light speed. And there's going to be so much savings because of what Doge is doing that you should be really excited about it. Because we need to stop doing really stupid things so that when we spend our money on the good things, the things that really matter, that we've got more of that. And that's why Elon is doing what he's doing.
Reuters Ipsos poll that was done right after the USAID news broke found that 56% of people would like to see all foreign assistance programs suspended, which is leading a lot of people to say that the Democrats have picked a very weird hill to die on.
That's because there's no other hill to die on, because President Trump continues to deliver on the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail, and going through the federal government line by line and making this government more efficient is one of those priorities and one of those promises that President Trump made. And as you just cited, John, 56% of Americans support freezing foreign aid. And I read a fascinating article in the Washington Post today. They interviewed voters in Pennsylvania, and all of them said that they support President Trump and Elon Musk's efforts to make this government more efficient. What President Trump and Elon Musk and this entire administration is trying to do is make our bloated bureaucracy here in Washington run like a profitable business. And every agency has been tasked with going line by line and ensuring that the American taxpayers' money is aligned with the American people's interests. It's a common sense solution to fixing a decades-old problem of bloated bureaucracy, waste, fraud, and abuse. And the vast majority of Americans support it. So the Democrats can hoot and holler all they want. This White House will stay committed to delivering on President Trump's priorities and being good stewards of the hardworking American people's tax dollars.
There are about a dozen lawmakers, Democrats, attempting to get a meeting with the acting education secretary. This comes as President Trump has said the Department of Education might be something where Secretary McMahon, if she's confirmed, would get herself out of a job. And also you had the former Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, writing yesterday in the Free Press. She thinks the Department of Education should be eliminated. This is one of those things where they're probably not going to get access to this building, but the Democrats are flummoxed as to how to deal with this, Shannon.
Yeah, Dana, I think you're right. We see them showing up and protesting outside of a number of buildings, or actually, as we saw on Capitol Hill yesterday, I think it was, actually forcing themselves and their way into a meeting that they wanted to be a part of. And I think right now they feel like chaos is the strategy. I think that was the line that was in Playbook maybe this morning, talking about the fact that they know that they're going to be overwhelmed with all of these actions, all the things that they, are trying to get a hold of. They're showing up. We've seen protests. We've seen we're at war. We've seen them say, take this to the streets. It does feel like the Democrats are kind of back on their heels trying to get control of the messaging, much less the substance of all these different things that are happening, Dana.
And I think the one congressman I can make out there is taking the photograph right now. I believe that's Maxwell Frost, and they're talking to a security guard. So let me just turn it back over to Sandra to ask you another question as we watch these Democrats who, I guess it's performative art in a way, Sandra, to try to make a point.
Absolutely. You notice the camera's up, and you're noting Maxwell Frost, the congressman from Florida, in the picture there. Apparently, this is a security guard. But Shannon, obviously, this is just further signs of what is to come. I spoke with Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, yesterday, and asked her about the president's intentions with the Department of Education. They're not detailing exactly where they're going with this, but there has been a lot of talk about dismantling it altogether or reworking it, but we just don't know. And that uncertainty leads to a lot of this.
It does. And conservatives have been talking about this for a long time, that they feel like states are much better equipped to handle the education system. It's closer to the parents. It's closer to the people that are directly involved, the students as well. So it's one of those agencies that has been targeted by conservatives to say this doesn't need to be this federal behemoth that has all of this money when states and localities and local school districts know much more about what their students need. They are much more accountable to the parents who show up at these meetings, which we've seen the last few years, to demand answers and accountability for their kids. So not surprising that there would be this conversation about taking this away from the federal level and sending it back to local and state. But I think ideally for conservatives, they want it as local as possible.
The White House telling News Nation over 60,000 workers have signed up to leave their jobs while being paid until the end of September. And Musk says the reductions could result in $100 billion in savings. That's based off of what would be the average government salary of about 6 figures, Laura. But the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, calling federal workers who work remotely lazy. She also said that if they don't want to come into the office and they want to rip off the American people, then they're welcome to take this buyout. Laura.
Wow, some tough words there. All right, the temporary block on President Trump's federal worker buyout plan holds until tomorrow, we see. So do we expect the judge will come back tomorrow with any further decisions? Are we going to hear this on Monday?
Right. We know that U.S. District Judge George O'Toole Jr., he did pause this plan that was actually going into effect until Monday afternoon. So that is when that will stop. But as you mentioned, that's going to be when everyone will show up in court. He will hear both sides of the argument in court, as well as hear from the unions. And then ultimately he will be making his decision. But here is what Donald Trump had to say on Friday about the money that is being spent on government programs. Here's the president himself.
We're talking about trillions of dollars. It will be, in the end, trillions of dollars being absolutely wasted, and perhaps illegally. I would say certainly in many cases illegally.
And we have heard from several labor unions stepping in, saying Trump's plan is illegal. Of course, all of that will be brought before the court tomorrow, Laura. But as we have seen, even with the Biden administration, with the TikTok ban, tomorrow we woke up and it was back online. So things change what seems like every moment here in Washington.
Right. Interest on the debt is the single largest item in the budget behind Social Security, more than spending on defense, Medicare, and children. So how are you going to work on all of this together when you've got serious costs in terms of defense, $125 billion there, in terms of the border, $150 billion at a minimum there, and then you've got all these new tax cuts that President Trump has introduced into the conversation, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and now you're talking about lifting the SALT deduction?
Well, you're right, Maria. The fact is that, we have to send a signal to the financial markets that we're serious on bending the deficit curve. I do believe that there is, as Doge and Elon Musk are finding out, there are hundreds of billions of dollars of money improperly spent in the U.S. government. There are programs where people who are ineligible, like Medicaid, still collect or still are on those programs. We have to look at every program. The president said, look, Social Security and Medicare benefits off the table. We get it. But we have to look at really every other program to see to it that we can deliver the tax cuts and that we can deliver on deficit reduction.
Let me ask you about Tunde Waragwa. How many people were arrested in yesterday's operation? And was this a part of this Aurora operation promise that Trump made, or was it separate arrests? How many were arrested yesterday?
Well, President Trump made a promise to American people that we're going to concentrate on trying to deliver. They're one of our priorities. As far as yesterday, operational security, the operation was leaked. And again, we're going to hold those people accountable once we find out what the leaks occurred. This isn't a game. When the operations get leaked like that, it puts our officers at great risk. It's already a dangerous job. We know TDA is dangerous. Everybody can agree to that. But when they get a heads up we're coming, it's only a matter of time before our officers are ambushed. And their job's dangerous enough. So we're going to address this very seriously. And look, I said from day one, we want to be transparent with the American people. We've invited numerous media outlets along. But right now, it's all about OPSEC, Operation Security. So we may have to stop the media ride-alongs because I'm not pointing the finger at them, but the less people that know about these operations, the safer it is for our agents. So we're looking at that right now. I'm talking to Colonel Leavitt about the next steps on that.
Sir, why was Chicago singled out in the lawsuit today against sanctuary cities?
Look, sanctuary cities are sanctuary for criminals. I'm glad we got Bondi running the DOJ now. Sanctuary cities are sanctuary criminals. Make that clear. No, they want these sanctuary officials say, well, we want victims and witnesses of immigration crime to be free to come to the police without fear of us working with ICE. That is such crap. Because the victims and witnesses of crime don't want the public safety threat released in their communities? That's just ridiculous. The victims and witnesses of that crime want that bad guy locked up too. And when they're done, then give them to us. That keeps the community safer. If anybody wants an immigrant community, ask them a simple question. Would you rather have ICE operating in a jail or the community? They're going to say they want us in a jail because these immigrant communities, many are here illegally, but they also are family people too. They don't want a predator in their neighborhood released back in the community. So, we're going to hold sanctuary cities accountable. We're going to take them on it, and we'll take them to court. Again, it's everybody, every elected mayor, every elected governor, every elected city councilman. You would think they would want their community saved too, and they would want public safety threats removed from their community. That's your number one responsibility, is protection communities. Work with us. Let us into jail to arrest and talk to the guy that you locked in a jail cell. You obviously locked him in a jail cell because he's a public safety threat. Let us talk to him. When you're done, give him to us. You don't have to hold him a minute. I've seen some sheriffs say, well, we're not going to hold him for ICE. We think it's a legal issue. You don't have to hold him a minute past what you know. Just let us know when you release him. Let us be there. Let law enforcement work along.
And now to a gripping video you'll see only on Local 10 News. We get a first-hand look at the immigration crackdown, riding with ICE agents rounding up illegal immigrants in South Florida. Agents telling us they're targeting criminals living illegally in the U.S.
Local 10's Janine Stanwood was the one and only reporter in South Florida to be embedded for these sweeps. She's live in Dania Beach with this exclusive. Janine.
Agents tell us their goal is keeping the community safe, and their priority is targeting people living here in South Florida illegally who have criminal records either here in South Florida or in their home countries. And for the first time, we got to see what they do firsthand.
Yep, there we go.
Federal agents tracking this gold SUV belonging to the man they want to arrest.
So right now, agents have the car in their sights, and they are moving on Federal Highway to track him down.
Oh, we're gonna stop in here. All right, let's go.
Soon, agents with Immigration and Customs Enforcement and U.S. Border Patrol are taking this Colombian national into custody by a marina in Dania Beach.
¿Cuántos años, cuántos meses aquí en los Estados Unidos? 3 años. 3 años.
He tells us he's been here 3 years and doesn't know why he's being stopped.
Criminal en Colombia?
No. He was only catch and release, and the subject failed to disclose his criminal history in Colombia.
But agents say he had a felony theft conviction before crossing illegally at the southern border and coming into South Florida. This day of targeted arrests we got to see firsthand is one of many since a new administration.
Our agent on the ground confirmed the vehicle is there.
The South Florida ICE office not releasing exact numbers of people in custody. Thursday, Border Czar Tom Homan said nationwide arrests are at about 11,000.
Do you think ICE is doing enough, that
No.
they're meeting their quotas?
No, they're doing a great job. Look, let me make clear, we're doing a great job. We got to do more. The less people that know about these operations, the safer it is for our agents.
This day, the Colombian man arrested is then brought to a facility where he's taken out of handcuffs, fingerprinted, and detained.
We have different sources and information of different criminal illegal aliens that are present in the United States at the moment, and we're actively working every day.
Agents tell us this is nothing new. These targeted enforcement operations are just stepped up. They continue to patrol the coastline, for example. As for that Colombian man, he will likely be transferred from this facility in Dania Beach to a detention facility, and he does now have orders to be removed.
So we're talking about this sealed up border right now that we're seeing under President Trump, and it's proving to be quite the hurdle for the criminal cartels. And check out this video time lapse that we just got of Marines actually deploying razor wire and barriers along the southern border in the San Diego sector in California. So they're working hard down there to thwart any illegal crossings, any drugs moving across, trying to ramp up their security efforts there. And it's working. We're seeing 600 or fewer encounters a day at the southern southern border. So that means, unfortunately and fortunately, the criminal cartels aren't making the money that they used to when they were moving thousands of people across the border on a daily basis. So it's back to their old desperate ways of moving massive quantities of drugs. So you want to talk about a spicy bust here. Officers intercepting more than $19 million worth of methamphetamine and $144,000 worth of heroin inside a shipment of cucumbers and jalapenos. Yeah, that would be a spicy margarita for sure. Last week in San Diego, meantime, Border Patrol seizing cocaine found in tar buckets. This was 20 plus pounds, worth up to $160,000. Finally, officers in the Tucson sector. This is between the ports. They actually found backpacks containing nearly 58 pounds of methamphetamine. This was in the desert near Y, Arizona. Now, sheriffs down here along the southern border and other law enforcement, they have their eyes not only on what's coming in, but also what is coming out. Here's why, because they know that when they see guns and money coming out of the country going towards Mexico, that means whatever the cartels were moving into the country, whether that's drugs or people, they were successful. Take a listen.
All these weapons coming through, all that money coming through, is that they were successful with whatever they sent to us, and with that money, they're buying things for them.
Sobering words to hear there. The chief of Border Patrol, meanwhile, reporting that this fiscal year, which just began in October, Border Patrol and their partners seizing $473 million worth of drugs. That is a massive jump from the $120 million during the same time period last year. Now, some of the things that the Attorney General Bondi laid out when it comes to going after the criminal cartels, they're going to basically ramp up prosecutions. They're going to target the cartel bosses or the leaders. They're also going to create task forces and also move around resources in order to really dismantle these terrorist groups just across our southern border.
A conservative TikTok influencer is considering legal action against New York Magazine over this cover image and article covering C.J. Pearson's party on the eve of the inauguration, celebrating President Trump's victory. Pearson says the magazine unfairly slandered him and other party attendees as racist. Some conservative activists posting to X an extension of the magazine's cover photo, accusing the outlet of purposely cropping out black partygoers in the Cruel Kids Table issue. 21-year-old C.J. Pearson says he's issued a formal notice to New York Magazine, warning them of his intention to sue for libel. Pearson points to certain excerpts in the article that he says were false. Here are some of the sections where writer Brock Collier mentions race. Collier writes, "Almost everyone is white. The men look like Pete Hegseth in bow ties and black suits with clean-shaven faces. The women are almost all out of their league." Collier later quotes an anonymous attendee. "Have you noticed the entire room is white? An older woman in an updo and a silver sequin gown asked me, though it wasn't entirely clear whether she thought that was a good thing or a bad thing." Pearson rejected the claims in the article in an interview with Fox News Digital.
They wanted to make us look like KKK light, and that's why they excluded all the black people from the photo. It's why they excluded all the black people from the piece as a whole. It's why they excluded me from the story and didn't do the basic journalistic duty of reaching out to me for comment, because they already had their narrative before they entered the door.
As of this recording, New York Magazine has not commented on the potential litigation.
What a bunch of dumbasses. Yeah, really.
All right, Doge is all the rage these days, and it's driving the Democrats and the media crazy. Now, of course, they're looking for any excuse to keep the spigots running and not to find out what really went wrong. Well, they found it in Elon Musk. Now, yesterday, Chuck Schumer and gang, they just absolutely lost their collective minds. And not only this, though, folks, not only they're attacking Musk, but they're also now going after his team, and they're focusing on their age, right? Wired broke this story. They actually doxed these young men and somehow equating their young age with a lack of ability. Take a listen.
Our reporting has identified 6 young men. All of our reporting indicates they are between the ages of 19 and 24. They are either recent high school or recent college graduates. High school graduates in at least one case.
All right, so young men who are doing things, profound. It's happened before. It's happened in the world of sports. Remember Tiger Woods? It's happened in the world of technology, some major developments by young folks in technology. By the way, it even happened with our country, the founding fathers. Alexander Hamilton was 21 years old. According to CNN, wasn't qualified. James Madison, these guys are young. James Monroe, 18 years old. Of course, these men right now are old enough, the ones we're talking about, to go to wars in foreign countries. But Democrats are calling them Musk's little boys, saying without even any regard to the fact that they're super talented. In fact, Luke Ferrator, he won a $250,000 designing award. He designed an AI program that decoded an ancient scroll from Pompeii. Take a look at this.
So this is the word that I actually found. It's right here. It's the word prophoros, which translates to purple. It's the first word we found in the scrolls. It was reviewed by a committee of kind of Greek scholars, but it's the word purple. And I'm glad it's not the word in or the or and that we found first. We actually found a word that has meaning.
Most impressive.
And then you go.
All 3 are going to look great on any skin tone.
The FCC has finally released the unedited version of CBS's 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris.
President Donald Trump launched a lawsuit against the network in the final days of the presidential campaign. He argued that CBS's editing of a Harris response had given her an unfair advantage.
The issue started when 2 different portions of Harris's answer to a question about Israel were aired on 60 Minutes and Face the Nation.
Face the Nation aired a longer answer, which Trump criticized, than 60 Minutes did.
So we'll let you see for yourself. First, here's the edited version.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Okay.
And here's the unedited version.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening. The Wall Street Journal said that that your administration has repeatedly been blindsided by Netanyahu. And in fact, he has rebuffed just about all of your administration's entreaties.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region. And we're not going to stop doing that. We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
That inspired me. It made me move my ass. And I have a poster of that on my wall now, and I show it to all my relatives and friends and Negroes.
Donald Trump, who also was a reflection of changes, I think, within us, a sort of desire for a politics that's maybe a little rougher and more direct. Yeah. And maybe more cutting and maybe more...
Yeah, I get it. They asked them a question today, and I'm sure if you're of the type of person who just always hates the one team and loves what the other one does, they asked them a question about the crash. And they said, will you visit the crash site? Now, every other politician would go, of course, it was a tragedy. And he went, it's the water. What do you want me to do, swim there? And I was like, exactly, right. You're exactly right. It's a stupid question. And you got just the answer you deserve.
Get the fuck out of here. No, I cannot.
And that is why they like him.
Yeah. He also, it's so interesting to me that he meets with the press all the time.
Yeah.
Normally, if you're a member of the press, you're wondering what's the president really thinking and how's he going to play it. With Donald Trump, you never wonder that. He will actually tell you what he's thinking and how he might play it. So it's it's the positive side of a mixed bag.
As Elon Musk's Doge agency continues its pursuit of shrinking the federal workforce to save money, a Trump administration official has now floated this idea of replacing employees with artificial intelligence instead. News Nation's Tom Dempsey joining us live from Washington this morning. Tom, all of this is coming as we learn of potential layoffs. What are your sources telling you about this AI idea?
Yeah, good morning, Marky. Good morning from Washington, D.C. Look, the Office of Personnel Management has already said that even after this federal buyout deadline, more job cuts could be coming to the federal workforce. And now the General Services Administration is saying that artificial intelligence may be used more to reduce costs. So on one side of this, you have President Donald Trump and his team saying that the federal government is far too big right now. And this includes billionaire Elon Musk as part of this effort to reduce the size of the federal government. But according to the New York Times, the General Services Administration could be a big target for staffing cuts. The Times reports that the GSA leaders have been discussing eliminating 50% of the agency's budget. President Trump appointed Josh Gruenbaum to help oversee the GSA, who recently told employees that this buyout deadline is only the first step as the GSA looks to cut redundant business functions and staff associated with it. In an email, Gruenbaum wrote, quote, "In addition to optimizing our workforce, we're also considering how we can use AI in our portfolios and ways to reduce prices for our client agencies." Changes, though, may already be happening. In a post to X, Elon Musk wrote about the group 18F within the GSA being deleted. 18F offers tech help to federal agencies, but this announcement could be part of this downsizing effort. Now, the GSA, just for some background, it helps build, manage, and preserve government buildings. And right now, the agency has a staff of around 12,000 people and oversees 360 million square feet of office space. But as part of that message to the GSA, that Trump appointee Josh Gruenbaum saying that the GSA could also be closing many of its 700 field offices across the country, Marky.
I think that what the Democrats have to be careful of is, again, being defined where we are more concerned about checking off boxes, a certain amount of this, certain amount of that, rather than being clear on what it is we stand for and have people of all backgrounds rise up to represent that. And the fallout from that is by just saying we have to have 5% of this, 12% of that, and not what it stands for, and that these people have merit and speak for the people. The fallout is you end up with people that cannot really do what needs to be done to make the party victorious. Sure, we need diversification, but we also need people that are able and qualified to do what needs to be done. And if we make point B point A and A point B, we lose every time. And we cannot let those that can make the most noise decide the strategy. Let them yell all they want.
That boy is good.
And that's the game!
You've disconnected from the hive mind. Explain.